Okay, this is a t-34 video where we cover the creation of the rigid structure for the inside of the chassis. You're going to need a couple of, well, you're going to need a few flat toothpicks, and I would go through them and make sure that they are actually flat, because sometimes they're sort of semi-wavy, and you're using them to maintain flat planes on the tank, and so it's important that they be flat themselves. So just choose through. For each vehicle you're doing, you're going to need two of them that are cut to about 4.5 centimeters. And the rest you can essentially use full length. You might want to nip the tip off a couple, but you don't have to make much of a adjustment. So I'm just going to take the tips off of a couple of them, and the other ones are 4.5 centimeters, and everything else you can use at full length. So we've got the vehicle here. You can see I've got one drying over here, and it will be ready for the next step, and I'll show you that as soon as we're done the first step. So what we're going to do is we're going to reinforce this, and we're going to reinforce this. And as you can see that I've kind of built a scaffold over the actual reinforcers, because these many clothes pegs won't reach in, and you don't want to like deform the structure this way, or even have the pieces going that close to the edge, because I mean these pieces fold in, so you want to have a little bit of room from the ends before the reinforcing pieces start. So I'm just going to start with reminding you that you should try to certainly this part's usually pretty flat because of these folds. We'll flatten this regardless, and we're just going to reinforce its structure. This one, however, you want to make sure is flat before you attach the toothpicks, so that it's not pushing against the toothpicks and maybe deforming them a little bit. So once you've got that flattened, just put a line of 4 glue, 1 water along one side, or both at once. You can do it that way if you want. And then take a full-length toothpick and just place it in the glue. About just to leave a little bit of space, maybe 1/2 centimeter, 1/3 of a centimeter between it and the edge, and it and either end. And then just pop 3 or 4 clothes pegs, mini clothespins, on it, making sure to pin it at each end and then toward the center. 3 will do. 4 is a little bit better. It doesn't really matter. And then the same for the other side. If you have a limited amount of the clothes pegs, you might want to use less of them. Now from the last video, I've repositioned the camera. Hopefully you can see, like, my hand was in the way a lot last time. Hopefully I'm getting better angles on the work here for you. Now I've got the thin, see these are slightly tapered. It's best to, if you have thick this way and thin this way, then put the thick this way and the thin the other way, just to spread out the reinforcement as much as possible. It's not that important if you've already put them in one way. I wouldn't detach them and do it again. It's just a good policy to try to offset the direction of the things, because sometimes they taper quite thin, and that won't be very strong, so it's good to use one strong side and one weak side. Okay, and with this here, we're just going to put both lines of glue on at once. And you can see where you need to stop your glue from where the folds start. So that's why we did the scoring and folding already. So it's okay to be generous with your glue. These are all hidden parts, so you're not going to have to worry about it being an ugly effect or anything like that. So pop your pieces of toothpick on. And I would always, if you're trimming the toothpick, always trim the more tapered side, so that you get the maximum width to the toothpick. Just keeps it stronger. And try to, as you're placing these, keep the toothpick in the puddle of glue. And it's best if you can get the toothpicks in a bit rather than attaching them way out here, because this folds in a little bit because it's already been folded. So the closer in to where the actual structural toothpicks are, the better. And once you're there, I've got some ones that are pretty much dry. You can see that it's kind of warping the other way, but we can still modify it that direction. And that's probably an effect of the glue that we put on, but that's okay. We can pop these off. It should be dry enough now to hold those. And rebend it a little bit, just to bring that back to flat. Same with these. We can take these off now. These were already selected to be flat, so you can use, if you're low on toothpicks, you can use warped ones to hold the structure together, but you want to use all flat ones for the actual reinforcing. Now this is why I cut these the tips off, is because you still want to maintain distance from each side, and you've waited to remove these because you're gluing these in the second part of the process to these wings, which is actually the most important part to reinforce. So same basic operation. Okay, and the other side. Now, on with some of the vehicles that I've done videos for, I not recommend, but promote the optional use of cardboard reinforcement. Oops, this isn't. This is a full-length one. Let me just use this partial one. You can do that if you want. It's not really necessary. I mean, the short pieces are flat enough. As long as you flatten them before you form the body of the hull, they end up fine. So it's not strictly not necessary for any more of the chassis parts. It's not horrible to do for parts of the turrets, but be aware that if you're doing it for the top of the t-34 85 turret, don't come anywhere close to the front, because this tongue goes under there and it's glued as a tab, and so if you put any reinforcement towards the front, then there's not room for this tongue to stick in there, and you really don't want to have that problem. It's a very annoying problem. So you can do that optionally. I don't really recommend it, and I'm not going to show it. But with some of the other vehicles I have, and it is optional, but not necessarily necessary at all. So if you've got this, you're good to go to the next step. It's fine.